And in the beginning of it all, a middle-aged man, a young man named Beryl, concentrates on his training when suddenly his father begins to criticize him for being so old and not having given him any grandchildren yet. At this, he begins to get tough with Beryl, saying that he does not have the slightest devotion to his family. Upon hearing this, Beryl goes to the dojo, where he has been a master for about 20 years, and asks his father if his efforts as a master are not already a type of devotion. At this, the old man finally shows some kind of respect for his son's achievements, and tells him to continue like this. As for Beryl, he wonders how he can have children since he is not married yet, and as for his father, he reminds him that Beryl trained several students, so one of them must be suitable for marriage. But upon hearing this, Beryl makes it clear that the dojo is not a place for romance after all. The place is only made to teach the art of fencing. Well, as he continues on his way, Beryl remembers his story in that dojo, and from the time he trained with the wooden sword until now, nothing has changed, as he has continued to strive with the same dedication as before, as Beryl's dream since he was young was to be a great swordsman. And now in middle age, Beryl feels that he has evolved as much as he would like, and although he does not consider himself the best swordsman in the world, he believes that he has a knack for teaching. After all, many of the students in his dojo have gone on to very successful careers. Well, when he returns home, he sits down to eat with his family when suddenly one of Beryl's former students, Alucha, rings the doorbell. And when he sits down to talk to everyone, they discover that she has become a commander of the Royal Order of Knights. At this, Beryl's father praises him a scotch, since he was the one who prepared the girl for the important position she had just received. As for Alucha, she gets straight to the point and says she's there to let them know that she recommended Beryl as a special instructor for the Royal Order of Knights, and to their surprise, her recommendation was approved. So, she takes an official document out of her bag naming him as the organization's instructor. Upon seeing it, Beryl is in disbelief and asks if she's playing some kind of bad joke on him. After all, he considers himself too outdated to train the order. As for Beryl's father, he says that his son will be sentenced to death if he does not accept a royal request, so he begins to pressure him. At this, Alucha reassures everyone, saying that he will not suffer such a severe sentence. However, he will still reap considerable consequences if he refuses the order's appointment. Having said that, Alucha informs him that there is a carriage waiting to take them to the royal capital. Upon hearing this, Beryl is startled, as she did not imagine that they would proceed with things so quickly. At this point, Alucha reminds him that the dojo doesn't open the next day, so his training schedule won't be affected if he only stays in the capital the next day. As for Beryl's father, he advises his son to go to the capital as soon as possible and find a wife there. And as soon as he says this, he remembers Alucha and suggests that they have something. At this point, Beryl tells her father to stop joking around. After all, the girl is much younger than him, but upon hearing this joke, Alucha whispers, saying that she doesn't care about the age difference between them. At this point, Beryl hears her saying something, but doesn't understand anything, since she is whispering. As for her, Alucha disguises herself and says that she wasn't saying anything out of the ordinary. And well, after the conversation, they head to the capital by carriage. And on the way, Beryl notices that the girl still has the sword that he usually gives to his students who graduate from the dojo. And then, he expresses his happiness in knowing that she kept her sword all this time. But at the same time, he states that a sword from a simple village blacksmith will not meet the needs of a commander. But upon hearing him say these things, Alucha corrects him and says that in fact that sword was made entirely for her. And continuing with the journey, Beryl begins to wonder if he is really capable of being a special instructor. After all, he thinks too highly of himself to take on such an important position. And as for the girl, she says she is happy to know that the master swordsman from the countryside will finally have the opportunity to work in the capital. But upon hearing the term master swordsman, Beryl asks who this person is, to which Alucha says she is obviously talking about him. And well, when night falls, they arrive in Baltrain, the royal capital, to which Alucha leaves Beryl at an inn. And the next day, she takes him to the Royal Order of Knights, and introduces him as an extremely powerful swordsman, to the point that not even she is capable of defeating him. And while listening to her, Beryl is slightly frightened by the description she is giving about him, since he himself thinks she is exaggerating too much. And after that, he is put to give a speech to the soldiers, and he speaks with a certain insecurity, leaving some soldiers suspicious of his real competence. And after leaving the place, he talks to Alucha, and discovers that he will only need to train the knights 3 or 4 times a month, so this will not interfere with the classes he gives at the dojo in his village. And suddenly, another of Beryl's former students, Karuni, comes to the place screaming with joy when she sees him. As for Beryl, he is happy to see that she has become a real knight. However, the girl says that she still has a long way to go, but even so, Beryl says that she has already achieved the dream she had when she trained with him. In this, Karuni says she is excited to take classes with him again. And well, when she returns home, Beryl meets another of her students, Randrid, who is now married and has children, so the young man decided to return to the village to live a more peaceful life, completely abandoning his journey as an adventurer. The young man man says he feels a little bad about having to end his adventuring career, considering that he enjoyed Beryl's teachings. However, he believes that continuing with this type of risky work could end up costing him and his family dearly. Upon hearing this, Beryl says that he should make his decisions according to his wife's wishes, so if she agrees with him leaving the adventuring life, he should follow suit. And during the conversation, Beryl discovers that her father made an offer to Randred to take his place as master in the dojo, something that he only found out about now. With that, Randred says he is willing to give his best in this new journey in his life as a trainer. Well, the next day, Beryl returns to the capital and looks for a new place to live. After all, the inn he was staying at before is too expensive to maintain. Upon hearing this, Alucha thinks of some other place that is more affordable and that he can afford, and after thinking a little, she suggests that he stay at her house. However, Beryl immediately refuses this somewhat inappropriate offer, and as for Alucha, she suggests that they take a break to eat something. But before they can continue with the plan, a random person on the street starts to trouble them, saying that Alucha, the commander of the order, is walking with a strange guy who looks like a coward. Upon hearing this, Beryl starts to sweat as she realizes that she is attracting a lot of negativity by being around someone as well known as Alucha. At this point, he starts to slowly walk away, hiding his face, but Alucha recognizes the person behind the insult. In this case, it is a girl named Lysandra. She then walks away and leaves the troublemaker talking to herself, but when she notices that she is being ignored, Lysandra follows her and stops in front of her. At this, Alucha reminds her that she has nothing to talk about, but Lysandra continues with the insults from before, saying that a random face like Beryl should not be called master under any circumstances. And as for Beryl, he notices a specific necklace in the girl's neck and discovers that she is a black class adventurer. As for the girl, she observes Beryl more closely and remembers that he was her master 20 years ago. In this, he forces his memory and remembers that she was a little girl that he rescued and taught the art of the sword. And well, after talking a little more, Lysandra asks why he is walking around with Alucha, and noticing the arrogant tone with which they said this, Alucha informs her that Beryl has become the special instructor of the Order of Freedom, and since he needs to find a place to live, she is helping him with these issues, since she knows the capital better than he does. Upon hearing this, Lysandra reminds her that she was once a broker for adventurers, so she is more qualified to deal with these matters. And amidst discussions, the two manage to help him with a place to stay, but they continue to treat each other like cats and mice even though Beryl asks them to get along. And the next day, Alucha takes Beryl back to the Order of Freedom, where he will begin training the knights. Until suddenly, the vice commander of the order, a man named Hemlet's Drought, goes to Beryl and asks for a duel, as he wants to make sure that he really serves as a special instructor. And before the battle begins, Beryl notices that he really is just an old man without many battle skills. Therefore, he does not believe that he has a chance of winning the fight, but promises that he will do his best not to lose too badly, so that Alucha will not be humiliated for supporting him. And as soon as Hemlet begins his attacks, Beryl notices that the boy is really very strong in his lethal blows. But in the end, Beryl calculates the angle of his opponent's sword and manages to deflect it. Then he strikes him in the chin, winning the first round. At this, both return to their positions, and Beryl feels that he has made a serious mistake as an instructor by striking him by accident. And as for Hemlet, he deduces that Beryl's last move was just a cheap trick, so he promises to put an end to any other traps he tries to set. During the fight, Beryl notices that his opponent is indeed stronger and faster than him, but Hemlet still has very linear movements which make them easier to predict. Well, seeing that nothing works, Hemlet decides to appeal, using one of his most powerful attacks, which is capable of destroying his opponent's swords. But in the end, Beryl manages to dodge the attack and lightly strikes Hemlet in the back, winning the second round as well. After this, the look of revolt in Hemlet's eyes disappears, and now he finally sees Beryl as a master worthy of all his respect. And so, he organizes a welcome party for Beryl as a way of apologizing for his previous rudeness. And with that said, Hemlet asks him to reveal the secret he used to dispel her attack. In this, Beryl explains that she only matched her rotation with his, and thus managed to escape the attack. And meanwhile, Handred talks to Beryl's father about him and says that he deserves a place that has something better to offer him than that simple village. Beryl continues with her training, and when she sees a boy using a very ineffective distance in combat, Beryl interrupts the training to teach the boys the right distance to keep in a fight, because even if the difference is only one step, sometimes that is what defines the winner of a fight. And while he teaches this basic concept to the two students, the other disciples begin to pay full attention to him, as if Beryl was saying the most important thing in the world. Well, after training, Beryl deduces that the students are holding him in such high regard due to the fight he had against Hamlet, which, by the way, was a very close fight and served as an inspiration to the students. Meanwhile, Alucha attends a meeting with the Order of Freedom, and they ask if the instructor she recommended is actually up to the task. In this, Alucha informs them that Beryl exceeded all the expectations she had placed in him. And after the meeting, she walks through the halls of the institution thinking out loud and explains that in order to master the sword, becoming a master, it is necessary to refrain from becoming a commander. After all, both things take up a lot of her time. However, she had to make the sacrifice in order to get Beryl out of where he was. And when talking about him, she remembers the time she was introduced to the dojo where he trained because her parents decided it was time for Alucha to learn how to protect herself. And as soon as she saw Beryl for the first time, Alucha says she could already feel the kindness that Beryl exuded, and this was confirmed throughout the training sessions with him explaining everything with the greatest care. After all, he was training his students so that they would have the most efficient movements possible. And since Alucha had never experienced training of this kind, she saw everything as a great novelty, and for a year and a half, her training focused on physical resistance and fencing practice. In this, Alucha became stronger and stronger, to the point where the sword became lighter and more comfortable in her hands, and in addition, Beryl always praised her when she evolved in something, regardless of whether it was a small or significant achievement. And one day, Beryl calls her to practice some moves with him, and at the end of the training, he notices that she is more out of the curve than his other students, because instead of attacking him randomly, she chose a good moment to do it. And well, on another day, Alucha and the other students are taken to another dojo, where they meet students who had a different type of training than theirs. In this, Alucha is placed to face another student in a training context, but before the fight begins, she notices her opponent with his guard completely open, which makes him a walking attack zone. In this, Alucha exchanges some blows with the boy but soon eliminates him, and notices that she defeated him with an ease that left even her surprised. As they leave the place, Beryl says that they had an excellent experience facing people with a different combat style. However, Alucha notices that in fact, this experience made her realize that the students of the dojo that Beryl trains are much stronger than people who have another type of training. But upon hearing this, Beryl says that they are not as strong as they seem. However, Alucha reminds him that all the students of his dojo defeated their opponents. And furthermore, she says that Beryl won the simulation she had against the master of the other dojo. In this, Beryl explains that their styles just aligned in a way that favored them, therefore, he cannot say who is stronger. And furthermore, he asks Alucha to focus her thoughts on what she learned from facing those students, and not focus on who won or lost the fight. Upon hearing this, Alucha still doesn't quite understand what he's saying, but decides to follow his suggestion. And along the way, Alucha notices that she forgot something in the opponent's dojo, and so, she decides to go back to the place to get what she left there. In this, the dojo students pretend to deliver the hair accessory that she had forgotten there, but as soon as Alucha reaches out to grab the accessory, the boy who was holding it throws the item away and tells her to go get it. In addition, the boy shows that he was angry for having lost in training and says that she should not feel that she won the fight just because she defeated him during the simulation. As for the boy next door, he starts to mock the place where Alucha came from, saying that in a real fight they would never lose to a bunch of country bumpkins, so they invite her to a new fight, but Alucha refuses. At that, the boy who lost to her makes it clear that he will attack her if she does not do something to protect herself, and right after saying that, the boy tries to strike her, but Beryl appears right in time and gets in the middle of the blow. At that, he suggests that the boys do not use fencing in that dangerous way, but the boy decides to double the bet and tries to attack him. At that, Beryl takes the sword from the young man with just one move, and then he grabs the hair accessory that Alucha had gone to get. And as for the boy who had his sword thrown away, he grabs the sword from one of the students and tries to attack again, but in the middle of all the confusion, the owner's master appears on the scene and tells the young man to stop it. And when he sees his students trying to challenge Beryl, the instructor calls them all idiots and says that even if they join forces, they still won't be able to defeat Beryl. And furthermore, the instructor tells his students to face reality and accept that Beryl's students were better. Upon hearing this, Beryl advises the instructor to take it easy. After all, his students are going through a difficult phase in their lives, and that's why they end up acting so arrogantly. However, the instructor kneels down towards Beryl and apologizes on behalf of all his students. Well, on the way back home, Alucha says that it's all her fault for what happened, since she ended up forgetting her hair accessory at the dojo. But when she sees her blaming herself so much, Beryl says that she wasn't to blame for anything either. After all, he should have accompanied her to the dojo from the beginning, so he apologizes to her for putting her in danger. But at the same time, he says he's happy that nothing as serious happened to Alucha. And as soon as she hears this, the girl starts to cry. And then, Beryl deduces that she's crying because of the situation she ended up going through. But internally, Alucha tells herself that she was just very emotional with Beryl's words, and that's why she ended ended up not being able to handle it. And well, after a few more days of training, Alucha faces her master again in a fencing duel, and this time, she finally manages to defeat him. And then, Beryl assumes that she is now strong enough to receive his sword and end her activities at the dojo. After all, he feels he has nothing more to teach her. But upon hearing this, Alucha realizes that Beryl is just being very humble, as she is sure that she is not even close to his feat as a swordsman yet. And although she did not want to leave the dojo, Alucha agrees with his decision to avoid causing him more problems. And as soon as she leaves the dojo, Alucha sets as her life goal to prove that her master's skills were unmatched. And so, she takes her first step in that direction by taking the test to enter the order. And since no one there had a speed equal to her master, Alucha managed to enter the order with top marks. And since then, she decided that she would do something for her master, taking him out of that small town to give him a more dignified life in a big city where the order is located. In this, she rises to the rank of commander and achieves several things to the point where she generates enough confidence to hire an instructor. And 10 years after she left the dojo, Alucha finally manages to go after his master and bring him to order. And even after a long time, Alucha notices that he not only continued to have the same absurd speed as before, but also improved his skills even more. And well, when she returns to the present, Alucha meets Hemlitz and asks how the training is going. At this, the young man informs her that he is just going over the training that Beryl had given her before. Upon hearing this, Alucha deduces that her master has finished training for the day. However, Hemlitz says that in fact, Kuruni decided to take him to see the capital, because since she arrived, Beryl has focused all her attention on training her students, completely forgetting to enjoy the capital. And upon hearing that another girl is walking around the capital with Beryl, Alucha becomes slightly jealous, because she wishes she were in Kuruni's place. After all, this could be considered a real date. And upon hearing her say something slightly suspicious, Hemlitz asks if she said anything to him. However, Alucha covers it up, saying she didn't say anything out of the ordinary. And meanwhile, Beryl is dazzled by the amount of shops the capital has. After all, this is the complete opposite of her village, which only had an inn and a simple grocery store. As for Kuruni, she claims that the best place to go sightseeing is the Western District. But upon hearing this, Beryl remembers hearing that the Northern District was the best, since it has more tourist attractions, such as the palace and the church. At this, Kuruni reminds him that only country people like that kind of thing. And well, during the walk, a girl named Feist approaches the two calling Beryl master, but as usual, he doesn't remember her. Then, Feist shows him the sword he got from him when he finished the dojo and asks if he can remember her now. And upon seeing the sword, Beryl forces her memory a little more and finally remembers the girl. As for her, Feist says she is there to buy some magical accessories. And upon seeing her using one of the accessories, Kuruni mocks her, saying that anyone is capable of performing magic with those items. However, Feist makes it clear that she is capable of using magic even without the help of magical items. And during the conversation, a man starts running after stealing a woman's bag. However, Feist manages to capture him quickly by imbuing her sword with magic and shooting at the target. And at another moment, Beryl walks alone through the capital, when suddenly, he is approached by a girl named Lucy Diamond, who introduces herself as the commander of the Liberis Kingdom's magic course. And as they continue walking together, Lucy takes him to an isolated area and challenges him to a fight, so that she can test everything she has learned so far. There's no way. These loli are taken directly from ReZero are always crazy, and I'm sure it will give the protagonist a huge headache. We now have the option to become a member if you want to support the channel, and if you want part 3, leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video.